All right, well, let's move from that because it's been, a crazy week, and I have touched on this. I'm just curious about your theory about Stormy Daniels because my operating theory has been for about a month or so now, basically since the story about Stephen Cohen, being the one to pay her off prior to the election to keep her quiet. I've been operating under the theory that this is not about the election because, does anybody think that there's a single vote that's going to be lost because this guy had an affair with an adult film worker or anybody else for that matter? I don't think that, and I don't think they were worried about that. And certainly we found out this week that Michael Cohen was trying to suppress her speech now. So the idea that it was about the election doesn't make as much sense, right? I mean, he's been elected. Why, you had this stuff floating around there. Now would be exactly the time that you would want it released, right? Because you don't want it closer to the election in 2020 if he's going to rerun. My operating theory has been that there's a prenuptial agreement between Donald Trump and Melania, and it says something that she gets a massive payout if X happens, and Donald Trump knows that X happened with Stormy Daniels. Now, some people are saying, is there a paternity test involved in this? Was there, like an abortion? Or, I feel like it could be any of those that, probably are the dividing line is like no intercourse or no intercourse without protection. And if there's evidence that arises that he broke that, then I would imagine there's a document that says Melania gets like some extraordinary amount of money for divorcing him. I don't know, $50 million, like one of those jobbies, or $100 million. But what's your take on what's going on here?
Well, I find your theory very intriguing, and that may very well be what it is. I mean, just on the marriage angle alone, this is not good. I mean, Trump could deny. Melania came out after the Access Hollywood tape, and she did an interview, and she said, "Well, it was boys' talk," and she didn't. She pretended not to take it seriously. He claims that all these women are lying. They were just trying to stop him from being elected. She chose to believe that. But, this is an affair, and
right.
It's an affair with a porn star. Different thing. That's a different, consensual relationship that if Stormy Daniels has proof, and that may be the case, there may be something, according to the non-disclosure agreement, it's so specific that you have to wonder. I mean, maybe that's just Trump boilerplate for every non-disclosure agreement with a porn star that he has,
right.
And I'm sure there's many. But
Google has a template for that, anyway. So
yeah, right, of course. But there is some suspicion that perhaps she has something, some kind of proof that they did have an affair, that there was something going on. And so perhaps, even if there was no prenup in any marriage, that would cause a bit of a strain to find out that your husband was having an affair with a porn star 4 months after you gave birth to to your son. So that's kind of an ugly thing to begin with. But I don't think Trump cares about that. I don't think that it would just be because, my wife will be upset. I don't think he cares if she's upset. I just don't think that that's part of it. So I tend to think more what you're saying, that there was big money involved. And from what we understood from the Michael Wolff book, Fire and Fury, Melania was very seriously contemplating divorce. Had the election gone the other way, she was getting ready to leave him, and there have been rumors that she has an affair of her own, et cetera, et cetera. So, maybe that was what it is. I mean, maybe that was all it was. I'll tell you though, there's something about this that's different than all the rest, right? Trump has always denied this stuff. He's always said, they're gold diggers, they're all lying, the women, they're all liars, they're all a bunch of liars. And he was going to sue all the women who accused him of assault and harassment. there's something different about this. There's a reason why Michael Cohen has gone so far to keep this quiet, and whether or not it's this prenup business or it's something that Stormy Daniels knows about Trump, that if it got out would be dangerous to him. And, I don't know what that is. I do know that she's an adult film star, so she's not a person who would be, sexually shy. And I don't know if you've read this, in the new book that's coming out by Michael Isikoff and David Korn, which explores Trump's Russia connections. It's called Russian Roulette. I haven't read the book, but I've read the excerpts that have been coming out this week. And one of the stories, just a little tiny anecdote. Do you remember when Trump met the Agalovs in Las Vegas? There's a picture of them meeting there with Rob Goldstone and all that stuff. This was before the 2013 Miss Universe pageant, and they were making their deal. There's a picture of them meeting in Vegas and they had a dinner, and there's Michael Cohen is there, the Agalovs, the son and the father.
Remind people who that is, Egalorov.
Right.
These are
the Russians who, he's a real estate magnate. His son is a budding pop star. And they were among the financiers of the Miss Universe pageant coming to Moscow in 2013. They've been great friends with Trump, and were also involved in that infamous Trump Tower meeting in June of 2016 with Trump Jr., Jared, and Manafort to provide dirt on Hillary Clinton.
Right, from the lawyer, right? The lawyer who was ostensibly talking about adoption.
Exactly, and it was the son Emil Agalarov, who is the budding pop star. His quote publicist Rob Goldstone, who we have not heard enough about him yet. He was the one who set up the meeting, and he was also at this dinner in Las Vegas. He was very much involved with Trump, Keith Schiller, the rest of them during the Miss Universe pageant in 2013. In any case, in this Vegas meeting, this is something that there's just a little anecdote that stuck out to me. The Agalovs are there, Goldstone's there. They have this dinner with Trump, and later that night they are going to go out clubbing, and they're going to go to this place called The Act, and it was in one of the hotels. I can't remember which one. And Trump calls them up and says he wants to go along, make room for him. So they do. They go to this thing, and there are pictures of him standing in front, the sort of in the red carpet thing where you get your picture taken with celebrities going into a club in Vegas. And there are pictures of him with the Agalovs in the club that night that were on Instagram. This club, as it turns out, was infamous for its, let's just say, extreme sort of sexual pageant.
Matt has put up the excerpt on the screen right now, and it says the club featured semi-nude women performing simulated sex acts of bestiality and grotesque sadomasochism, skits that a few months later would prompt a Nevada state judge to issue an injunction barring any more of its lewd and offensive performances. Among the club's regular acts cited by the judge was one called Hot for Teacher, in which naked college girls simulate urinating on a professor. In another act, two women disrobe, then one female stands over the other female and simulates urinating while the other female catches the urine in two wine glasses.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that rang any bells with you.
Well, it did. Not one I'd like to talk about. I mean, I've had some great work. I really liked it.
I wasn't suggesting that, Sam.
I was super surprised about the two wine glasses. That was the part that I really... Yeah. Okay. So maybe now, when ostensibly did the P tape supposedly happen? When did that?
Well, this act, the act. Nobody knows whether they performed the Golden Showers routine that night,
right.
But they had. It was during the period when they were performing the Golden Showers routine. It was after that the Miss Universe pageant was held, and that Trump was in Moscow, and ostensibly, according to the Steele dossier, there were people who said that this event where the girls urinated on the bed that the Obamas had slept in happened. Now, I don't, maybe this is all coincidence, but it occurs to me that if the Agalovs were there and they saw Trump, and who knows what Trump might have said to them about this particular thing,
That's my
or whether
favorite
they observed
scene.
him being deeply interested in this particular thing, or what. But it just seems to me, and I'm sure that Isikoff and Korn both put it in the book for this purpose, which is to sort of, look, so you've got Trump who is going to great lengths to shut down any discussion with an adult film star who is, as I said, undoubtedly not sexually shy or one who would, be unwilling to do certain things. Then you have this, and then you have the rumors about him in.
I see where you're going. So
Moscow.
You're suggesting that maybe the concern is that Stormy Daniels is going to talk about one of the things she's done was pee in a cup or something like that.
Exactly.
But here's why I think it's possible, but here's why I'm a little skeptical that that's the reason why they've been so adamant about her, because in October when they first kept her quiet, there was no wide awareness of the P tape, was there? Wasn't this something that came out after the election? And so the urgency to keep Stormy Daniels from talking predates the public awareness of the P story. And I think it was coincidental with the election because that's when people were interested in talking to Stormy Daniels. We already know the stuff about the affair. That's why I'm convinced it's a prenup thing. With Trump, I just think at the end of the day, the guy's so shameless. It's just always about money. And I think it's just, he's afraid it's going to cost him money.
Well, I'm sure that's true too. I mean, I'm sure that's true too. I just have a feeling that, there's some reason to believe that, and I don't care, by the way, I don't care what his sexual habits are. It's in fact, the mere thought of it is repulsive to me to even contemplate it on any level. But I could imagine that being something that he wouldn't want to come out, regardless of whether or not the Steele dossier was known. Now, presumably, if this did happen in Moscow, Trump knows it happened in Moscow. And Trump knows probably that they know it happened, if it did.
Right.
So I would, this may have been in the back of his mind, regardless of the Steele dossier or the Russian investigation, that this thing that's out there is something that he has to be aware of. In any case, look, just think about what we're talking about here. We have a president who is so open to blackmail on so many different levels from so many different people that it's impossible to know what his motivations are for anything, not to mention the fact that he's greedy and corrupt. Right. So whatever he does, we can never assume he's doing it out of anything other than some kind of personal motivation, for his own or his family's benefit. And I've never seen anything like this. But that is, of course, the oligarch model, isn't it?
Right, of course. And the other part of that model is like all of my family's in on it too. Mm-hmm. It's like we're going to have like all the kids.
Exactly.
And, if we could get the grandkids in this, like sort of like a 529 type of program. Except you don't have to use it for education, but it's all tax-free.
Yeah. Look at what's happening with the son-in-law. His favorite daughter, she kind of, she married she married someone very much like her daddy. Big surprise, right?
Yep.
And we've got all this stuff with Jared, and the story that came out about him actually having meetings in the White House with people who later gave his family $500 million, that's B with a billion with a B, $500 million in loans. And this was not something that you would have expected from this particular group.
Yeah, it was one of the biggest loans they had ever given, I think, if not the biggest. Look, government's just another way of saying coincidence. That's all.